FarAway Wanderers. Chapter 40. Lord 7th. Zhang Chenling felt dizzy. The scorpion poison probably starting to take effect. It was like thunder was booming right by his ears. The noise all around him sounds like it was separated from him by a layer of gauze. He could hear it, but it felt somewhat unreal. He turned his head in the direction where the arrow came from and saw two men. The man with a small crossbow in his hand was dressed in a navy blue robe, his long sleeves fluttering. A belt with the width of a palm fastened around his waist, and on the side of it hung a white jade xiao. He didn't look like someone of the Jianghu, nor did he look like a scholar, but looked more like a noble who luxuriated in wealth. His peach-like eyes seemed to have a slight smile, but upon closer examination, his gaze towards the last poisonous scorpion was slightly cold. Through the haze in his mind, Zhang Chenling thought that his person was the best-looking man he'd ever seen. He was followed by another man, in black with a frosty-looking face. A small ferret sat on his shoulder. The suicide warrior seemed to hesitate for an instant before hurling like an arrow towards the man holding the bow. Zhang Chenling only felt an indescribably sharp gust of wind whip past his ear, and before he could realize what had happened, the poisonous scorpion had become a dead scorpion. Only then did he look at the man in black, who was in some distance away, but now was by his side in the blink of an eye. Bending down, he picked up Zhang Chengling's bleeding hand and reached out to seal a few of his acupuncture points. Stuffing a pill into Zhang Chengling's mouth, he said, "Swallow it. It's scorpion venom." Zhang Chenling couldn't care about anything else. He tugged at the hem of the man's robes with great effort, saying, "Gu Xiang. Sister. Please help." The words he had expended all of his energy to form blurred into one another once they reached his mouth, troubling the man in long robes next to him to pause for a moment. Yet amazingly, the man still understood and asked, "You're asking us to help save someone? Where are they?" Zhang Chenling extended a finger, pointing in the direction he had come from, mumbling, "Gu, sister, save her, save, save." The man in black looked up at his companion. The man in long robes asked, "Why aren't you moving yet?" The man in black scooped the ferret from his shoulder and threw it into his arms. "Be careful, I'll be right back." Then he seemed to disappear after turning around. Zhang Chenling stared blankly at the direction where the back of the man had vanished, his gaze almost boring holes in them in his anxiety. The man in long robes helped him sit upright and instructed, "Close your eyes, concentrate. Don't let your imagination run wild. Safeguard your own life first before worrying about other things." Zhang Chenling knew that it was useless to worry anymore, and so he closed his eyes in as instructed. The little ferret wriggled out of the man's robes, curled into a ball and sniffed around him. A faint stench of blood wafted in the air. There was also a whiff of fragrance clinging onto the man's robes. Amidst these scents, Zhang Chenling gradually lost consciousness. When Zhang Chenling woke up, the sky was completely dark. The numbness of his body had faded along with the scorpion poison. Then he slowly got up. For a moment, he was a little disorientated, unable to recall why he was in this state, until a young girl next to him exclaimed, "Ah, you're awake." Overjoyed, Zhang Chenling turned his head. Although Gu Xiang was a little disheveled, she was still whole. Her wounds had been treated and she was currently sitting by a fire pit for warmth. Right at this moment, a calloused hand reached over, fingers resting against Zhang Chengling's wrists as they took his pulse. After a while, he let go of him and said, "The poison has been purged." It was the man in black. He ignored the curious look Zhang Chenling is giving him. He simply nodded and sit ramrod straight under the tree. When viewed from this side, his chiseled profile seemed like it was carved from stone. Zhang Chenling found that the gaze Gu Xiang giving this man was full of awe and respect. It even felt like she was somewhat holding in check her usual raucous way of talking. He said awkwardly, many thanks for your help." Hearing this, the man in black nodded slightly and said in his mouth, "No need." Then he stopped looking at him and turned to look in the other direction. Zhang Chenling followed his eyes and saw that the man in the long robes was walking over to them holding a pile of firewood. Just as the man in black was about to stand, Gu Xiang had already run over enthusiastically, taking the firewood from him. "Lord Seventh, you should sit, you should sit. Leave these things to me. Why are you doing manual labor personally? I'm someone else's servant anyway." The hooded eyes of the Lord Seventh she spoke of curved in a smile as he heard this. He then let Gu Xiang take the firewood from him. He sat next to the man in black who produced a small and delicate hand warmer from nowhere, stuffed it into his hands with practiced movements and nimbly plucked a dry leaf off his sleeve. It could have been Zhang Qingling's imagination, but he felt that the man in black had turned from a lifeless block of stone into a person of flesh and blood in that instant. Even the look in his eyes had grown warm. The two did not talk much, but there was a tacit understanding between them. Lord Seventh looked at Zhang Chenling and asked, "Are you feeling better?" His voice was not loud, but it was very nice to listen to. Suddenly, without knowing why, Zhang Chenling blushed, bowed his head, and nodded silently. He could not help sneaking a peek up again, wanting to take a look at that man. At the tavern, the woman who arrived was also extremely beautiful, but Zhang Chenling suddenly felt that compared to this man, the woman's face was like a layer of skin made of paper, thin and look fake. Lord Seventh asked again, "What's your surname?" "Those people." Before Zhang Chenling could react, Gu Xiang, who was adding firewood to the fire off the side, answered, "He is my brother, and naturally his surname is Gu. The two of us were originally hired to do chores in our master's house. I was a maid and he was a servant boy, but who would have known that calamity would befall our master's house? We don't know where they came from, but they want to hunt all of us servants down to kill us all no matter what. It's highly immoral of them. If they ever have children in the future, their children won't amount to anything. Many thanks to you two gentlemen." The man in black glanced up at her, and Gu Xiang couldn't bring herself to continue, her wide eyes looking side to side. She was speaking nonsense, but Lord Seventh did not point it out. He simply continued from where Gu Xiang left off with a pleasant expression on his face. "Both of you are injured. We should have brought you to an inn, but this little maiden said that someone was hunting you down in the city, so it won't be safe. We would have to trouble you to spend a humble night here and make plans tomorrow morning. Do you have anywhere else to go to?" His voice was mild and gentle, like he was trying to comfort two very young children. Zhang Chenling listened to him and suddenly felt very sorry for himself. He thought, where else could they go? His father was long dead, his whole family exterminated, and good or bad, everyone he bumped into wanted to kidnap him. He was like a startled bird that had flown until its wings were nearly at breaking point. But as vast as the world was, he still could not find a place to land and rest. His eyes reddened, but he remained silent. Instead, Gu Xiang thought about it and said, "My master and this kid's Shifu were originally going to meet up with us, but we didn't expect a bunch of people would suddenly show and hunt us. We ran out of panic and didn't know if they would be able to find us." Thinking of Cao whining, Zhang Chenling thought to cleverly add, "And brother Cao was taken away by a few strange people." Gu Xiang immediately shot daggers with her gaze at Zhang Chenling, warning the little idiot not to speak carelessly, but he was preoccupied with self-pity and grief and completely missed her warning. Lord Seventh picked up on his words and asked, "What kind of strange people?" Zhang Chenling answered honestly, "A dwarf and a giant, and an old granny and grandpa dressed in flowery colors." Gu Xiang rolled his eyes and stared up at the starry sky, wishing she could knock Zhang Chenling into unconsciousness again. Lord Seventh appeared to be unfamiliar with the pugilist, paused and asked, "Who are they?" The man in black beside him said, "The earth god Feng Xiaofeng and Gao Shanwu. The ones in flowery colors, they probably ran into peach red grandma and green willow grandpa." His gaze flashed towards Zhang Chenling like lightning and asked coldly, "Although they are of shady characters, they are conceited individuals. They will never mix with the poisonous scorpions. Why are they hunting you down? Once his gaze fell on Zhang Qianling felt like a frigid block of stone was pressing on his chest and choked on the spot. Yet, Lord Seventh laughed and said, "Little Venom, don't scare the children." Hearing these words, the man in black dropped his gaze and like an ancient monk entering meditation, no longer paid any attention to Zhang Qianling and Gu Xiang. Lord Seventh stared at Gu Xiang, who was restless, then turned to Zhang Qianling, and suddenly asked, "Child, let me ask you, does your master have the surname of Zhou?" Gu Xiang was deeply afraid that Zhang Qianling would reveal other pieces of information and answered hastily before he could, "You're wrong, his Shifu doesn't have the surname Zhou but is surnamed Tang, he's a sleazy and lecherous old man." Note, Gu Xiang actually says porridge Zhou and soup Tang. Yet her pig-like comrade in arms Zhang Qianling frowned and said to her with a righteous air, "My Shifu is not a sleazy and lecherous old man, you're talking rubbish." Gu Xiang's 10 fingers thrummed with the urge to strangle him to death. Lord Seventh shook his head and laughed out loud. "Where did this mischievous and clever little maiden come from? That's enough, we are not bad people. Consequently, your Zhou Shifu is a good friend of mine from the past." Gu Xiang's pupils darted back and forth with an idea. "Say then, what is his Shifu called and what does he look like?" Lord Seventh said, "His surname is Zhou and his name." Suddenly he paused, his hooded eyes narrowed as he pondered for a moment, and thought to himself, "Zhou's issue, that person was used to hiding behind partial truths. Surely, he would not use his real name, so what would he call himself?" Lifting his gaze, he saw Gu Xiang staring at him with a pair of unblinking big eyes. He found it so funny that he had really been stumped by a little maiden's questions. A thought flashed through his mind and he blurted out, "He's called Zhou Su, am I right? Body like an drifting cloud, heart like a floating willow seed, and had brother called Zhou Yun. As for how does he look like? I don't know what he looks like today because he is accustomed to disguise. Although ultimately he makes no progress whatsoever. No matter how he disguises himself, he can't be anything other than a man with a yellowish-green face and sleazy features, right?" He could not be sure whether Zhou's issue would use the fake name Zhou Yun or Zhou Su, but he thought that with the man's personality, he would only use those few names, and so he bluffed his way through with half-truths. Gu Xiang was stunned by his words but still said dubiously, "Huh? Zhou Su still have a brother?" In the period she had known Zhou's issue, she had found him to be very mysterious. Even after hearing Wen Kexing said that he might be a senior figure of Tianchuang, he is still a mystery to her. Where had he come from where he would leave? Which sect had he been of, and other details like that were all unknown to her, and she had never heard that he even had a brother. Another thought flashed in her mind about the two people in front of her. It was difficult to tell for the man in blue robes, but the man in black was truly one of those rare experts that she had rarely come across in her life. Even if her master was present, it would be difficult to tell who was more skilled. If he wanted to harm her and Zhang Qianling, it would be as easy as squashing 2 bugs. There was absolutely no need for them to lie, so in her heart, Gu Xiang truly believed them. Lord Seventh realized that the 2 little ghosts bought his bluff. He lowered his eyes to look at the rising fire, and laughed silently. So, on the second day, Gu Xiang brought Zhang Qianling along with her and left with these 2 men, carefully avoiding detection by others. Lord Seventh brought the 2 of them to a bank where the shopkeeper and the boss, who resembled a ball of dough behind him, came out to immediately welcome them, respectfully addressed the 2 men as master and great shaman respectively. Lord Seventh settled them in and brought snack to share with the 2 of them. Sitting off to one side, he started a game of chess with the man in black, passing the time like this. At noon, the boss of the bank came in suddenly and said to Lord Seventh, "Master Zhou has been located and has arrived." Lord Seventh threw the chess game aside and stood, pulled his pale hands back into his sleeves as he smiled cheerily and commanded, "One of life's 4 greatest blessings is to bump into an old friend in a land far away from home. Ping an, hurry and invite him in." End chapter. FarAway Wanderers. Chapter 41, Despair. Previously, when Zhou Zishu arrived at the Ping An Bank, he could always enter straight away. Today however, the shopkeeper had asked them to wait after letting them into the main hall. He served tea to him and Wen Kexing, who was curiously looking around the place just like a villager who had came to the city for the first time from the rural areas. The shopkeeper was all smiles as he said, "Please wait a little while, Master Zhou. Lord Seventh is here today and the boss has gone in to pass news of your arrival." Zhou Zishu's heart leapt, his emotions suddenly in jumble at being so close to meeting an old friend once more. Wen Kexing commented indifferently, "Hey, didn't they say that Gu Xiang and Zhang Chenling are here? Can't they just lead those dumb kids out? What news do they have to pass on? It's not like we've entered a lord's manor." Zhou Zishu stayed silent, thinking that Wen Kexing was truly a person of divinity for every guess he made to be correct. After a short while, Ping An walked out at a brisk pace and said, "Master Zhou, my master and the great shaman are waiting for you inside. This pugilist world of the Central Plains is really getting more and more chaotic." Before he could muse further upon it, Wen Kexing followed Zhou Zishu into the inner hall. Pushing open an aged wooden door, a courtyard in which a row of sweet osmanthus flowers were planted lay beyond. Upon entering, they could smell a faint fragrance. Ping An brought the two of them into a house. Once he pulled the curtain aside, the warm air within rushed out to them. Lifting his gaze to peer in, Wen Kexing discovered that aside from Gu Xiang and Zhang Chenling, there were two other men inside. His gaze involuntarily drifted to the man in black. In that instant and without prior agreement, they nodded to each other and shifted their gazes away, as a show of cession each other out of courtesy. Wen Kexing regarded the other man, guessing that this man was probably the Lord Seventh that the shopkeeper had mentioned. At first glance, he could not help but be amazed. He reckoned that of all the good-looking individuals in the world, and he had seen a fair number of them, none of them could compare to this man. Those eyes and brows came off as somewhat frivolous in their beauty, but were balanced by an air of affluence around him, thereby revealing only a hint of the indefinable, loose charisma. It was like the idiom "a noble as outstanding as orchids and jade trees" had been thought up to describe him specifically. The next moment, he heard Zhou Zishu call respectfully, "Lord Seventh, great shaman." Smiling cheerily, Lord Seventh came up to him and examined his face, sighing nostalgically, "After many years of not seeing you, Zishu, your taste are truly becoming something fewer and fewer people would agree with." Zhou Zishu laughed and reached up a hand to wipe lightly at his face. Plucking the human skin mask off, he carried it in his arms and smiled wryly. "After so many years, other than young maidens, the only person I know who dares to hide behind a beautiful face is that fool Juxiao. That Chidi who had died in the battle of the capital all those years ago. Liang Juxiao was the regret of his lifetime." Zhou Zishu had dared not mention him after so long had passed. That scene was like a dream to him. But here, faced with an acquaintance from his past, he felt like he had returned to the capital of that 10-mile Wanjiao River. Those past acquaintances and past event flashed in succession before his eyes, and astonishingly, he had spoken that person's name without a second thought. Actually, it was nothing much to say it aloud. It merely felt like something had been cast out of his chest, like he was missing a piece of it. Lord Seventh smiled, sighed, and looked at Zhou Zishu again before frowning. "Why have you become this thin?" Zhou Zishu shook his head, dropped his face and chuckled, "It's a long story. It's most probably that I'm getting old." Wen Kexing was a person how lusted after men to begin with. At the beginning he had admired the man, thinking that this Lord Seventh was truly peerless. Yet at this moment, he was starting to grow dissatisfied. For so long he had pestered and badgered Zhou Zishu, and the fact that it weren't for Yu Kai Yufeng and company giving them trouble, he might not even have had the chance to witness Zhou Zishu's true face till now. This man however could make him wipe off his human skin mask within 2 or 3 sentences upon his arrival, and even knew his real name. Indignance rose within Wen Kexing. Ping An asked the two of them to sit down and served them tea. Lord Seventh asked, "Has all been well, in the capital?" Leaning against the backrest, Zhou Zishu's whole body seemed to relax as he slowly said, "There are those leaving on expeditions as commander and there are those returning to the palace as premiers. The young Marquis He Yungxing has married Princess Jinggan. The couple are far away in the northwest and can be said to have set their roots down over there. The emperor is quite well. A little prince has just been delivered to him this year, but I had to leave early and couldn't make it for the third prince's full moon feast." Between the two of them, one asked and the other answered, their conversation unhurried. The great shaman didn't interrupt, but merely listened in silence on one side. Smoke rose gently from the incense burner. It was as if time had slowed down. Wen Kexing felt that there was a strange atmosphere between the two men. He had never seen such a Zhou Zishu, who sat drinking tea and chatting quietly with serene expression on his face. It's as if these two were old kindred souls who had not seen each other for many years. Though this reunion might have come out of the blue, joy did not show on their faces. They talked about inane and dull things that could go without being said, yet it was like they shared a silent mutual understanding in their hearts. He began to find this Lord Seventh unpleasant to the eye, thinking, where did pretty boy came from? He keeps going by Lord Seventh, and doesn't even dare to give us a name. He cannot be a decent fellow. He felt that this Seven grandfather was not pleasing to his eyes, and said to his heart, where did this little white face come from? 7 lords and 7 lords did not dare to reveal even their first names and surnames. It was definitely not a good thing. Very displeased, Wen Kexing then tore off the human skin mask from his face and beckoned Gu Xiang and Zhang Chenling, who were already staring at him. "Come here, you two." At once, the gaze of the three people shifted onto him. The faint trace of nostalgia had not yet faded on Lord Seventh's as he asked, "And is this?" Zhou Zishu hesitated for a moment before he said, "A friend, from the Jianghu." Before he could even finish the sentence, Wen Kexing suddenly grabbed Zhou Zishu's hand from where it was resting on the small table and put it over his own chest. He squinted at Zhou Zishu and said, "A friend from the Jianghu? That's not what you said to me previously. Why, Su, are you planning on abandoning me after you've toyed with me?" At that moment, the expression on Lord Seventh's face could be described as amazed. Even the great shaman, who had been silent for a while, paused. His black eyes swept between them before finally settling his eyes on the hand that Wen Kexing was pulling. Zhou Zishu freed his other hand and skillfully flicked at Wen Kexing's elbow, forcing him to let go. Then he calmly lifted the tea bowl and continued speaking as if nothing had happened. "He is called Wen Kexing. He is quite insane and always talk nonsense. Lord Seventh, please pay him no mind." Lord Seventh was dumbfounded for a while before he finally couldn't stand watching them any longer and said, "Ping An, what use are your eyes? Hurry and top up Master Zhou's cup." As if he had been startled from a dream, Zhou Zishu put down the empty teacup and gave Wen Kexing a venomous glare. Wen Kexing suffered it willingly, exposing a smirk that made one's teeth itch with detest. With the intent to stir the pot, Lord Seventh sighed. "To think of wealth and glamour of those years now transformed so completely that I can no longer recognize them. Who knows what has become of the moon-gazing river, constructed upon heaps and heaps of rouge powder, and all those magnificent and ornate buildings along it today. That year, during the crisis of the capital, you and I made an oath on the tower. If we lived to see long, leisurely days, we would not retire our cups before we were drunk. I had been waiting in Nanjiang for so long that the wine has grown cold, yet an old friend does not even have the slightest intent to visit." Immediately afterwards, he shifted topic as a mischievous smile glint in his eyes. "Zishu, you have broken our promise to meet, but I have not. Until now, I still remember that you asked me to procure you a slim-waisted Nanjiang girl, and I have taken note of many. I am not sure if you—" The great shaman coughed lightly, traces of laughter appearing on his aloof face. Josisha felt that he shouldn't stay any longer, so he stood up to slap a hand over his fist in a sloppy salute, saying hastily, "Ah, what's that? Lord Seventh has just arrived in Dongting and must be exhausted from travel. We'll not intrude any longer." Lord Seventh interjected, "Actually, we are not tired at all." Wen Kexing shouted at the same time, "What? Asu, you've even said something like that." Immediately, the room descended into silence. The few of them stared at each other until Gu Xiang, who was more insensitive to the situation, patted the head of Zhang Chenling, who were spacing out. She lamented, "This is called how well can you know another after a night of longing, be utterly ignorant as you sleep like the dead in spring. Little Chenling, I think the two of us should go rescue brother Cao. Every one of them only cares about fighting for a lover's attention and isn't reliable at all." Note, Gu Xiang is basically butchering idioms here. She probably learned it from Cao whining. Lord Seventh laughed and said, "The little maiden doesn't need to worry. You said that this brother Cao is a person of the Qingfeng sword sect, so those people will not dare do anything to him. Instead, if you rush there without sufficient preparations, you will be confirming his guilt and will cause more trouble for him. Zishu, you've just been here in a short time and you already want to leave? Sit for a while longer. As the old saying goes, there is no company to share the beautiful days of youth with. You and I met again in a rare reunion but have barely reminisced enough about the past to fill a cup to the brim. Why are you so eager to leave?" Wen Kexing felt that this person is deliberately talking confusingly and pretentiously by citing references from literary works. He found him unreliable and increasingly unpleasant and thought that the words "the genteel sophisticate accumulate great falsehood while the simple boorish accumulate great virtue" were indeed true. A person who talked a lot of nonsense indeed inspired his loathing, even if he was a beauty or an absolute beauty. Tugging Josishu along, Wen Kexing said, Yes, we won't disturb your rest. We still have some matters to see to." However, the great shaman smiled and shook his head, while laying down the chess piece he was fiddling with. He stood up and said, "Manor Lord Zhou, I see that you are not in great spirits and your countenance appears to be somewhat languishing. Could I take your pulse?" Josisha paused, but Wen Kexing's hand on him tightened abruptly. The mirth on Lord Seventh's face disappeared. He frowned and asked, "What is it?" The great shaman said, "I will need to take a look before I can accurately tell. Though forgive me for being blunt, Lord Manorjo, looking at you now, you show signs of a person on their last legs." What exactly had happened? Upon hearing this, Wen Kexing released Josishu slowly, his expression growing serious. Lord Seventh suddenly said, "Why, does Helianyi refuse to spare you?" Helianyi is the true name of the current emperor, yet Lord Seventh uttered it so nonchalantly. No one at present noticed this small detail, though those in the know and outside of it were looking at Josishu. Josishu had to smile a little, stretched his wrists to lay it flat in the great shaman's hand. "Lord Seventh, what kind of place that is and what kind of person he is? Shouldn't you know more clearly than I do?" The great shaman put 3 fingers on Josishu's pulse. His brows knitted more severely. It took a long time before he let go of Josishu. Then he sighed softly and said, "I've heard that Tianchuang has 3 autumn nails of the 7 acupunctures." "Indeed. You have nailed one into your body every 3 months, allowing them to grow into your body and letting your meridians wilt bit by bit so that you would not lose your mind and can still retain a few levels of core strength, am I correct?" Lord Seventh's eyelids twitched. Still, Josishu smiled and said, "The great shaman is very observant." Yet the great shaman ignored the remark, clasped his hands behind his back and slowly paced around the room. Wen Kexing felt an abrupt sense of panic, opened his mouth, but did not make a sound. Instead, it was Lord Seventh who helped him ask, "Wu Shi, do you have a solution?" The great shaman didn't speak for a long time. He contemplated things for a while, then slowly shook his head. "If you had hammered in 7 nails at the same time, although your mind would be addled, I might have been able to come up with a solution to remove them. If you recuperated with great care afterwards, you will be able to recover some. But once the nails in your body are removed, the core strength you possess will undoubtedly flood your nearly desiccated meridians and destroy them. By then, not even a god can save you. Yep, I had already said this once. Josishu waved his hand and expressed his unwillingness to listen to it again. Just now when the great shaman had spoken, he still had a few slivers of hope, even he did not make them known. Otherwise, he would not have presented his wrist. He also didn't know when it started. Perhaps it was because of these few nosy people by his side, or maybe it was because he had been dragged into those troublesome affairs, that he had begun to be sentimentally attached to this mortal dust. Upon hearing the great shaman say his verdict, he felt a little bit upset in his heart. With effort he chuckled and said, "You should have told me this earlier. If I had known that the great shaman has such divine knowledge that he even knows how to remove the 3 autumn nails of the 7 acupunctures, I would definitely have told Tian Chuang to switch to a more foolproof method so that not even one person could escape our net." The great shaman looked at him without answering, still carefully thinking about a countermeasure. Josishu nodded to Lord Seventh and said, "We will take out leave first and come visit another day." They had just walked to the door when they suddenly heard the great shaman say, "Wait," or. Before Josishu could react, Wen Kexing grabbed him tightly. His hand was like iron clasps around Josishu's wrist, pinning him in place. Turning his head, he properly and politely asked, "What did the great shaman think of?" The great shaman hesitated a moment before he said, "Manor Lord Zhou, if you abandon all your martial skills, I may have a fifth of confidence that I can save your." When Josishu heard the words "abandon your martial skill," an indescribable smile surfaced on his pale face. It was difficult to tell what emotion was behind it. He raised his hand to cut him off and gently replied, "What else do I have left if I rid this body of mine of martial ability? Will I still be myself? If I am no longer myself, why should I still keep on living?" Then he broke away from Wen Kexing and turned away. The great shaman's words were on the tip of his tongue, but he did not say them in the end and just quietly sigh instead. End chapter. FarAway Wanderers. Chapter 42, The Big Fuss. Zhang Chenling followed behind the 2 men in perplexity. He felt that his Shifu has become a little bit different after changing his appearance. The atmosphere was stifling. Even Gu Xiang off to one side did not dare to make a racket, merely following along silently. Usually, once the 2 of them were put together, they would keep needling each other, both taking cracks at the other person to release excess energy. Now however, neither one spoke, both focusing their attention on putting one foot in front of another. Josishu did not bother to put his human skin mask back on. No one here will recognize him anyways. Josishu felt discomfort in his chest, as if he was suffocating. The great shaman's words were like a severe blow to his chest. If he had to renounce his martial arts ability in exchange for a coin flip chance at hope, then he would rather not have this hope and just die slowly with a serene heart. Throughout the history, many pugilists had fought one another for just one secret manual and failed tragically. That gongfu of his was something he hand-honed and trained for through strenuous practice, through the deepest winters and the hottest summers. It was something he had spent decades of laborious efforts to develop. It was not merely a possession of his nor merely a skill he was proficient with. It is the essence of his being, his soul. What does it mean to renounce one's martial arts? It was like a person missing his soul. He might as well have turned into an imbecile at the very beginning and lived blissfully in idiocy. Naturally, the great shaman understood this. It was why he just sighed in the end and did not bother to persuade him. If he was missing a good portion of his soul, if he had not this last bit of dignity, was it not an empty existence that was only fulfilled by dying? He indeed wished to live, but he did not wish to do so barely clinging onto the last thread of life. Suddenly, Josishu couldn't help but sing a long song. "Time flies like an arrow that I cannot catch. Dreaded the years of age that from me detach. At dawn the hills blooming magnolia I clasp. At dusk the islet's moribund weed I grasp. Swift suns and brisk moons will not their course delay. Seasons permutate September into May. In musing I think of the plants that wither. In trembling I look upon grace gone thither. His voice was a little hoarse, each word and every line is tinged with grief, fear, and depression, and left behind only rebellion and a wild sort of pride that he couldn't otherwise express. He was born with that pride, but had kept it twisting and turning within his heart for a long time. Now that he had reached the end of the road, now that he wandered amidst rivers and mountains that stretched thousands of miles around him, it was bursting out of his throat at last. The day was gloomy, the heavy sky pressing down. Grassland as far as the eye could see. There's a lone dirt path bordered by wilted trees trailed the boundless plateau. The uncaring northwest gale blew bleak, rustling through thickets and rock cracks like the wail of a mountain ghost. It felt as if 1,000, even 1,000,000 years could pass in the span of a day. The wind billowed into Josish's robes and wide sleeves, puffing them up, as if telling him to go with it go. When Kexing looked up and gazed Josish's skeletal frame. Stirred up by the gale, the long strands of hair at Josish's temples flew about, lashing the side of his face like whips. When Kexing closed his eyes and blocked out the bright, lingering after image, to concentrate fully on tasting the scorching pain. The icy draft rushed into Josish's throat, making him choke. His tune that was so off-key no sheet music could have transcribed it cut off abruptly as he hunched forward to let out a fit of coughs. On his near-transparent mouth, only a thin line between his lips showed a dark blood red. It drew a curve that resembled a smile. When Kexing raised his head to gaze at the sky that looked like it was about to fall. Then a flake of something cool settled on his face, the first snow of Dongting had descended. Why did brave men have to die? Why did beauty have to fray? Suddenly, a sense of resentment flared in Wen Kexing's chest. The resentment seemed to be on his own behalf but also seemed to be for another, almost spilling over. He was unwilling to accept it. His fingers trembled as he felt an all-encompassing desire so strong that it could tear apart the heavens, the earth, and the mortal world with its might. He wanted to question the heavens, what was natural order? And why? Should man submit to its laws? With trepidation, Gu Xiang watched her master look at her. Ace Yang, Wei Kexing said with a smile. Do you like that foolish lad, Cao whining? Gu Xiang was dumbfounded, looking back in confusion. Master. Do you think he's nice? Wen Kexing asked again. Gu Xiang felt as if Wen Kexing was trying to bore into her soul with his gaze. A sudden and strange emotion overwhelmed her. Was Cao whining nice? She recalled the guy's solemn face when he had said to her, what if you were wrong? What if, you realize these in the future? I'm worried that you will feel troubled over this. She recalled the way he had turned back while blocking that couple of OL demons to keep them at bay at all cost and to say to her, take him away and leave first. Hurry. In that moment, she realized that nobody had ever told her to leave first in a situation of danger before. Without knowing why, she felt her eyes sting at the thought. She gave a wistful nod. Yes, Brother Cao is quite nice. He knows how to talk to people, and he's well educated too. Wen Kexing laughed soundlessly at that. Yes, he's the only person who can come up with something like be utterly ignorant as you sleep like the dead in spring. Gu Xiang picked up on the sarcasm and defended, weary in spring, exhausted in autumn and nap in the summer, everyone gets sleepy during springtime, don't they sleep like the dead and unable to wake? The way I see it, what Brother Cao says is reasonable. His words aren't only just a bit better than those bookworms who only talk of the scent of chrysanthemum comes from the bitter cold, they're a lot better. With amusement, Wen Kexing observed the young woman whose cheeks had taken on a faint blush. After a while, he nodded. All right then. Let's go rescue him. Gu Xiang was taken aback. Huh? Didn't that Lord Seventh say just now that if I want to save someone, then I'll save them, Wen Kexing cut in loudly. And if I want to kill somebody, then I'll kill them. I'll do exactly as I please, so let's see who the hell dares get in my way. Why prattle about so much? As a shabby, destitute pretty boy scholar, he doesn't know anything. Asu, are you coming with us? Josishu laughed and said, I wouldn't dare not to. When Kexing's mouth slightly twitched, but his brows were still drawn together, revealing an indescribable murderous look. This made his masked face look rather frightening as he said, all right, Ace Yang, whoever you are willing to rescue, just go and rescue them. I will naturally accompany you in stirring a big commotion. At this moment, Cao Whining was very disheveled. He had tumbled and was covered in mud like a mud monkey. His eyes was swollen shut. Both of his hands were tied behind his back and his sword was taken from him. Despite being shoved and stumbling for the whole journey, with Feng Xiaofeng roaring and cursing by his ears every now and then, but for some reason he was very much at peace. He realized that he was really worthless. The teachings of their Qingfeng sword sect's ancestors dictates that the individual goes where the sword goes, the individual dies when the sword shatters, uphold morality and righteousness, exterminate demonic evil. Now despite the fact that his sword had been snatched and that he had probably been taken for one of those unorthodox villains, he did not take it to heart. Cao Whining had never considered himself one of those great figures who had the tremendous talent to govern or the ability to shake the pugilist world with a stomp of his foot. As long as what he did was within his conscience, done without guilt, then he was all right with it. He only brother Zhou doing good deeds, saw Gu Xiang as a frail, petite maiden protecting the child of the Zhang family with life. Instead, it was these so-called venerable righteous people who were bitterly forcing them to desperation. What was good and what was evil? From the beginning, Cao Whining's greatest strength was his ability to keep an open mind. The Qingfeng sword sect taught him the path of good and evil, but did not teach him to pursue fame and personal interests. So, if others said that he was bad, that he had veered off the righteous path and willingly fell to evil, what could he do? Cao Whining thought about. He felt quite sad, but sad as he was, he did not find that he had erred in any way. In hindsight he thought, if others do not think me good, it doesn't matter. Everyone has their own life to live anyway, and it's not as if we have to get into each other's way. It's just that I feel like I've let down my Shifu and Shishu a little. The Green Willow Grandpa had probably broken one of his ribs, as in between every breath he took, his chest blazed with pain, making him lightheaded. He didn't even check his surroundings when they threw him into this dark place. Closing his eyes, he sat to meditate. He planned to recuperate enough energy back before making his escape. He was still planning on escaping. It didn't matter what happened to the others, but Gu Xiang is still protecting Zhang Chenling all alone. If they ran into the scorpions again before she could find Brother Zhou and Brother Wen, wouldn't it be quite the fix then? Sometime later, he couldn't have said how long, a commotion echoed from outside and a familiar voice made itself heard in a roar. Bullshit! When has our Qingfeng sword school ever produced a heretic? The way I see it, you peach red and willow green old demons are the ones who don't look like decent people. Cao Whining perked up. The locked door to the small room he occupied burst open and a group of people walked in. Cao Whining held his breath to squint at them and confirmed that the one person who'd been bellowing their outrage to the high heavens was none other than his Shishu, Mo Huaikong. Instant Cao Whining thought, oh no, my Shishu is going to hit the roof. Mo Huaikong had already hit the roof the instant he saw Cao Whining. He growled in fury. In a flip of his sleeves that harbored no respect for the old and venerable, he shoved Green Willow Grandpa and sent him falling flat on his ass. Enraged, Peach Red Grandma shrieked, Mo Huaikong! You lunatic, what are you trying to do? Mo Huaikong did not beat around the bush either. In front of everyone present, he shouted right back. That's my shizi over there. Whatever misdeed he's committed, my brother, our Grand Master, will see to him. Do we require you two old demos to uselessly screech at us about what we should do? Internally, Cao Whining could not resist the silent cry of well said, thinking that even though his Shishu had a terrible temper, he ultimately still sided with him. But then, Mo Huikong delivered his next line. Even when you beat a dog, you have to check who's the owner first. At once, silent tears trickled in Cao Whining's heart. Out of the blue, Feng Xiaofeng yelled and yanked over Gao Shanu, whose eyes had been bandaged with gauze. Pointing at Mo Huikong, he accused, "What a great school Qingfeng sword sect is. Why don't you ask your shizi what good deeds he's accomplished? The little witch he's been dallying with blinded Ashan with poison. If she isn't brought to me, I'll dig out this little rascal Cao's eyeballs instead." Mo Huikong was about to retort when someone unidentified in the corner let out a snort. For such a young girl to use so vicious a trick, she must be a little she-devil for certain. They said in a frosty voice. "I do believe we're owed an explanation as to why young Sir Cao is associating with a questionable woman like her." That shut Mo Huikong up. He turned to shoot a venomous gaze at Cao Whining. Cao Whining opened his mouth a few times before blurting out a pathetic, "Shishu." "Who's your Shishu?" Mo Huikong snapped in a chilling tone. He marched up and seized Cao Whining by the back of his collar. "Who's the girl they are talking about? Speak." Cao Whining opened his mouth and mumbled, "That's Ace Yang. Azenig isn't a bad person. Uncle, Ace Yang, she. Ace Yang." Peach Red Grandma scoffed. "Ace Yang? Ha! You're sure addressing her rather intimately." From another corner, Yu Kaiyufeng, who had just hurried back, threw in his opinion, "For a young man to be beguiled by a woman's wiles is understandable. As long as you are willing to atone and start afresh, we can forgive you, as we aren't a band of petty and narrow-minded p." But he was cut off. "I'm gonna dig out his eyeballs." Feng Xiaofeng bellowed before Yu Kaiyufeng could finish, successfully ruining the stage that Yu Kaiyufeng had set up for himself, whether on purpose or not. Yu Kaiyufeng gnashed his teeth, looking as if he would have liked nothing better than to trample the dwarf to make him a few inches shorter. At the moment, Gao Chong, Zhao Jing, Grandmaster Simu and the rest were all occupied with organizing Shen Zhen's funeral. None of them were in the vicinity. Without a leader, this mob of vile crooks was like a group of dragons without a leader, and bickered among themselves even more flagrantly. Mo Huikong's eyelid was twitching non-stop. He hauled up Cao Whining from the ground all in one go and fumed at him. "Unfilial disciple, speak honestly. Where did that little witch take the young boy after she kidnapped him?" With great effort, Cao Whining said, "Ace Yang didn't." Enraged, Mo Huikong landed a slap on his face, which had already swollen up like a pig's head. At this exact moment, a clear light voice announced, "The little witch is over here. You, old shameless bunch. Come and catch me if you are capable enough." Cao Whining's mind imploded. Ace Yang. End chapter.